On imom.com, we share ideas, insight, and inspiration. We do all that here too by sharing the best kind of stories, mom stories. We're all at different ages and stages, but one thing we have in common is that we're striving, and sometimes struggling, to love our children well. It's the iMom Podcast. Welcome to this week's episode of the iMom Podcast. I'd guess every parent has been lied to, but what do you do when you have a child who lies a lot or when you just don't really understand why your child is choosing to lie? I'm Abby, and Megan, Susan, and Chloe are back with me this week. I'm telling this week's story. It's called Liar, Liar, but it is not my story. It is actually my boss's story. His name is BJ, and he said, "You have my permission. You can use my name. You can throw me under the bus. So you guys can just say whatever you want about BJ."
We would have done it even if we didn't have his permission.
This is probably true. So he told me this story that he was a sophomore, and I think he was home alone one day, and he had recently maybe taken up golfing or had been practicing golfing, and he was in the house, and he grabbed a golf club and started swinging the golf club. And we all know where this is going. Something's getting broken or destroyed or whatever. And he ended up taking out a huge divot from the carpet. Yeah, I guess maybe he's not there. Maybe he's gotten better since then. Yeah. But at the time, took out a big divot of the carpet. A little bit later, his parents came home, saw the missing chunk of carpet, and got mad. I guess they ended up blaming the dog.
Or a cat. Was it a cat?
His sister's dog. Oh. So his older sister had a dog, and they blamed it on little Madison, the dog, right? And he just kind of, you know that Homer Simpson meme where he just kind of slinks back into the shrubs? That's what BJ did. Never said anything. And then he said, like later that night or the next day, he was in like their TV room or something like maybe a den where they had a TV. And he was watching Caddyshack 2, which he claims is the worst movie of all time. And his dad came in the room, and he's like, my dad never, ever comes in this room to watch a TV or a movie with me. Never. But this time he did. He walked in, he sat down, and it was right at the part in the movie where that exact thing happens. I think it's whoever it is. I don't know if Chevy Chase in Caddyshack 2, but he's swinging the golf club, and he takes the chunk out of the carpet. And he said, I wanted to like stop the movie and like eject or turn the channel or whatever, but it was too obvious that that's what I would have been doing. And he said, my dad was sitting next to me. And as he watched this scene, he kind of slowly saw his dad, his breathing sort of change and his demeanor change. And he looked over at him and looked back at the TV and looked over at him and looked back at the TV. And he said the size of the divot of the carpet that came out was exactly like his carpet. And he said something like, "You did it, didn't you?" And he just kind of sat there with his mouth closed, and his dad just got up and walked out of the room. But he didn't end up really getting in trouble because, it was an accident or whatever. But I said, technically you didn't lie, but it was a lie by omission. He could have spoken up.
Yeah, justice from Madison.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder what Madison was thinking about.
Yeah. Well, that's what he said. He's like, I kind of thought it was the best possible outcome. The dog wasn't going to get in trouble. I mean, his sister was mad at him because she's like, you let my dog get blamed for this.
Take the heat.
Poor Madison. Yeah. But kids lie for all different reasons. Every parent gets lied to. And so that's what I want to talk about today. Like how we were as kids, how our kids are, and how you deal with a child or children who lie. So, Megan, were you a truth teller or a lying liar growing up?
I think this was my fatal flaw as a child I was perfect. And this was why it was my fatal flaw, because I was perfect. And so if I did something wrong or messed something up, I lied about it. And as any of my friends can attest, and even I've had bosses tell me this, they're like, you have the worst poker face on the planet. Like if you're joking about something or anything, you can read it all over your face. And so of course I was a horrible liar. So I would lie to my parents or my mom, and she would immediately know I was lying. And so that was a big issue I had to work through.
How old are we talking here?
What was I? Probably like 6, 7?
6. I was going to say 6 or 7. Yeah. Because she learned pretty early not to. We did have consequences for lying.
Yeah. Why do you think she lied?
It was just her MO was clearly pride lying. She was too proud to admit she'd made a mistake, and so she'd want to cover it up. And so, but I will say she was easy to redirect because she was so easy to read. It's the kids who don't get caught in the lie that then are going to play, Russian roulette and try to lie again.
Right.
With Megan, it was so easy to identify, and confession, we did spank for lying, so she got out of it pretty quick, and she never lied again. Really, I can't think of an age where after that where she really lied.
That you know of.
Exactly.
Maybe I just got better at it.
She got better at it.
There are some telltale signs that your kids are lying. One of them is lack of eye contact. Another one is that their reactions don't match. So either they're overreacting to something that isn't a big deal. Like all of a sudden they're overly defensive or just not reacting the way that they normally would. That's a sign that they're lying. Mood swings. Swallowing and clearing their throat is a sign of lying. Did you do that a lot, Megan? Do you think it was a lot of...
I don't think so. But like I said, I wasn't good at it.
Yeah.
She wasn't. Her face would just freeze.
I've heard too that a sign of lying is when so if you're talking and you look up to your left, it means you're thinking about something. If you're talking and you look up to your right, it means you're lying because you're like accessing like creative thought on the right side. Have you guys heard that?
I've heard that too. Yeah.
I don't know if it's true, but I've noticed people doing it. So maybe it's true. Chloe, do you remember any lies you told as a kid?
I was not much of a liar as a kid. I can remember a couple, and I remember getting in trouble so fast. So I learned very quickly, kind of like you guys were sharing. And then as an adult, there were 2 times specifically I had an opportunity to get out of something, like a serious consequence with a lie, and I chose not to. And the other person that was with me did lie, and I avoided a way harsher punishment by telling the truth. And I just felt like God was like, remember this. So I definitely value telling the truth. I'd rather get in trouble for what I did than get in trouble for what I did and be a liar.
Yeah, that's true. What about you, Susan?
My mom was super approachable, so I think I was more out there and just like boldly stating what I did to see what would happen. So I did not really, I don't remember getting in trouble for lying. Other things, but not lying.
Yeah, I'm sure I did. I don't remember lying to my parents that much. I do remember not telling my parents that I got sent to the office one time. I got in a fight in the girls' bathroom in school. Can you imagine that?
Wait, we had another episode where you got in a fight.
I'm so confused.
You kicked a girl. What did you do now?
Surprising person. Well, in this case, this is not about lying. This should be a story for another episode. But I was in line. I think I was in 2nd grade. I'm looking up. I'm trying to figure out which direction I'm looking.
Liar.
We're going to watch her.
This is the truth. I was in 2nd grade and we were in line in the bathroom and a girl stepped in front of me. I'd like to go in the stall and I'd been waiting. She just walked right in. And I think I like ran ahead to like elbow her to go in to be like, no, this is my stall. And this girl was mean and kind of a bully anyway. And so I fought back and she pulled me down or I pulled her down or something like that. And someone ran and got the teacher. Next thing I know, we were both in tiny orange chairs in the in the nun principal's office. And I never told my mom. And then I got a C in conduct. And she was like, why did you get a C in conduct? I'm like, I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
And then she contacted my teacher to find out why I got a C in conduct. And that the rest of the story is that the teacher told her. And that's what I got in trouble for, was that I did not fess up and tell that truth, that's what had happened.
I will say my parents always were like, if you are ever in a situation where you're about to get in trouble and you need our help, like we are wanting you way more to just call us and be honest.
So I should have called my mom from the bathroom and been like, this girl just cut in front of me.
You didn't have a cell phone back then. What would you do?
Ashley just took my stall and I got to go.
No, but I do think I had the understanding that my parents were like, they were going to put a punishment aside to make sure like I felt like I could be honest with them. So I did feel like even though I might get in trouble eventually, I wouldn't be punished for telling the truth, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So. I think I kind of was like Megan. Some of the lies, or one of the lies that I can remember telling was more out of pride. And it was that I know I've told this story to you guys before. I don't know how to roller skate. I still can't roller skate. I still don't ice skate. None of that.
Got to take her roller skating.
I don't like it. It gives me like heart palpitations. I don't like it. And now it's probably from scars from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So I remember being at Skateland, standing there at the wall, waiting to go in to get our skates. And one of the girls like, "Are you excited?" I'm like, "No, I don't roller skate." "Why not?" I'm like, "I can't. I broke my leg roller skating years ago. And since I got that injury, I'm not allowed to roller skate anymore." And that was my excuse to not even have to put skates on. So.
But you hadn't broken your leg?
No.
So you just lied.
No, I just couldn't roller skate. So that was my That was my lie.
So you have no excuse for us though, because we know.
My excuse is I'm an adult and I refuse to do it. So I'm old enough now to make my own decisions. But so I've researched lately the different kinds of lies that kids tell, and they're really interesting. So one of them is grandiose lies. So this is like kind of like the guy that every time he tells a story about catching the fish gets bigger. But for kids, oftentimes they tell grandiose lies in order to increase their sense of self-worth and get positive attention. So if you have a child who tells these lies, like, say your husband comes home and says, "Hey, buddy, how'd you do at tonight's baseball game? Sorry, I missed it." And he says, "I hit 3 home runs." And you're like, "He didn't hit 3 home runs. He struck out twice and got walked." That's the grandiose lie. And so that's a sign that your child really wants some positive attention. And what you can do is spend some extra time with them or use language to remind them that they're amazing, not because of what they do, but because they're your child. Another kind is the evasive lie. So this is kind of the classic, like avoid getting out of trouble. So then what you were saying, Chloe, you've not only done the thing that would get you into trouble, but now you've lied about it. And I think this is a tricky one because how do you punish? Do you punish twice? Do you punish separately? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Megan, we kind of had a rule on that. We said there's one thing to make a mistake. It's another thing to cover it up. And evasive is covering up. It's, omission or commission. What you omitting to tell is really still a lie. So I think that's hard to teach younger kids. But if you start teaching it early, they start to see the truth a little bit more black and white. Like, okay, I could be evasive about this, but there's a risk.
Right.
And then when you've lied on top of making a mistake, there has to be a bigger consequence.
Yeah, I think that you just have to punish them separately. What about exploratory lies? I think these are the ones that are harmless. These are the ones where your child is exaggerating about something or telling a story just to have fun. It's like the imagination kind of lies. And they're really, according to experts, there really shouldn't be any punishment for these.
Can you give an example?
Yeah.
Last night after you tucked me in, my stuffed animals, and I had a tea party.
Oh, yeah.
We went to the park to play hide and seek. But some parents...
That's Santa Claus.
But some parents would say, "Now, that wasn't true. Let's, maybe not that extreme, that kind of lie, but other things like, Daddy drove 90 miles an hour on the way home and like stuff like that. It's not punishable. It's just their imagination and them exploring the world and vocabulary and storytelling and things like that. There's impulsive lies, which are often found in kids who have ADHD or something like that. They just don't have that self-control. And so experts say you can practice like red light, green light, and Simon Says, to actually help them learn impulse control so that they don't have that knee jerk, "He did it," or, did you spill this milk? No. Well, take some time to think.
I have a great story of that because my youngest, we adopted when he was 9. And so he did have some of that impulse thing. It was so funny because he did not get his driver's license till really late. And he was 18 and he had taken one of our older cars. It wasn't a really nice car, but, we were letting him take it out for like first or second time by himself. And he went over to a friend's. Well, Mark gets a call. He didn't call me. He called Mark, which is interesting because Mark is more black and white. I'm more like, what are you really saying here? But I happened to be in the room when he called and he said, "Dad, I need you to come over here. Somebody hit the car and shattered the back window." And Mark is like putting on his shoes, like talking to him. "Okay, where are you? Send me the address." And he gets off and I go, "Now, what did he say?" And I said, okay, I'm coming with you. We got in the car. I took out my phone and I called Grant and I said, hey, Grant, this is Mom. I'm on my way. I heard what you said to Dad. We're going to hang up and I'm going to give you exactly 2 minutes to think about exactly what you were saying. Because if I call you back after 2 minutes and it's the same story, I'm calling the police because this is a hit and run. I said, call you back in 2 minutes. I hung up. I called him back and he said, I backed into somebody's mailbox. But it is that impulsive panic. It's like they go to the fear side of their brain and they just want to cover up out of fear.
Yeah.
And so I do think if you give them a do-over, like I've said that to them, even simple things as a child, okay, let's have a do-over. Stop right now. Don't say another word because I know that's not the truth.
Yep.
Now I want you to take 5 minutes to think about what really happened. And they usually come back with the rational explanation.
And I think that's such a great idea because we want our kids to learn from the experience. We don't want to just accuse them of lying and then punish them and then move on. We want them to learn, okay, if I stop and think for a moment, I can come up with the better plan, which is to just tell the truth. I know that lying is not the way to go.
And usually it is the conscientious kid who, again, they go to the fear side of their brain, which then they don't control as well because they're panicked. And so it spills.
One of our writers, Anna, wrote an article that was really got a lot of traction on Facebook, Chloe, I think. I don't know if you remember this one, but it was 3 things not to say when kids lie. And she said that she actually ended up going to talk to a professional about one of her kids. And he had some really interesting advice that was hard for her to hear, which was she was part of the problem. So her son, I think it was her son, I don't know, was lying a lot. And he said, here are 3 things that you should not say that are often natural responses for parents to say. And one of them is, are you telling me the truth? I mean, you're basically giving your child a chance to lie again. You know, are you telling me the truth? Most of them are not going to come right out and go, no, Mom, I'm not. I mean, what do you really expect to come from that? Another one is, can you explain this to me? So if you think if your child is lying and you say, can you explain this to me? They're going to come up with something. And the other thing to not say when you think your child is lying is, I'm going to trust you this time, but make sure it doesn't happen again. Like that's just a free pass, basically. Yeah. So the question, of course, is, well, what do you say instead? First, you say, I know that you're lying. And then you say, and this is your consequence. And then you walk away without a lecture, without yelling. That's it. This is the end. And she said it worked like a charm on her child.
Have y'all ever been in a situation where you really can't tell whether or not your child is lying?
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, what if like you're pretty sure that they're lying, but there's like, a 25% chance that they're not, and you double down on it. And then you realize like you are wrong and you feel really bad for, really doubting them.
I think it's really hard, especially if you're in a situation where the child has done it often and they're the squeaky wheel and you feel like they're always getting in trouble. And then then the siblings start looking at them like they're always in trouble. And then you feel bad because you're uncertain, like, oh, I don't want to put another one on them. And I did have a situation like that was really tearing me apart because it was affecting their kids. And it was, early in our blending the original kids and the extra crispies, as my dad used to call them, my Kentucky Fried bucket. But and so I would literally lay down 20 minutes before I had to go pick them up all up in carpool and wait for the chaos to begin, because this was a certain thing that was happening amongst the kids and it was frustrating the other kids. And I would have to brace myself for the chaos that was coming. And I remember laying down one time and just being like, I just got to figure this out, or they're just always going to be fighting. And I had like opened the Bible to even like find some word, and I fell asleep. And I woke up and I thought, that's it. So I can't for a second say that this was my idea. It was inspired, definitely through the Lord. But I decided to have this child write down everything they had done wrong. So when I picked the child up, I said, no, you're not going out to play. You need to go to your room and write down everything you've done and everything you've lied about. And the child got very frustrated because I didn't say what. So they literally had been doing so many things
Oh, no.
to stir the pot that they didn't know what to confess. And I said, you're not coming out of your room until, you've got it. And my prayer was this, that I knew one thing the child had done wrong, a very small thing.
Yeah.
It was candy related. It was that insignificant. And so the thought had occurred, if the candy thing comes up, then this would be the Lord telling me to just give it all up, Susan. Let this go. You're never going to figure out who really did this. If it was not there, I was going to continue to ask for more. So the child came down with a list, like 6, 7, 8 things. Candy wasn't there. Back up. Shoe went up again. Came down, not there. Next day, several more lists. We're into the weekend now, and they're missing out on fun. And I kid you not, it was lists later. The thing I was looking for came out in the middle of a list at the end of the weekend, and the candy was last.
Wow.
Now that is, Lord, I have these lists to this day.
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
a clear comfort from the Lord for me, because he knew I was doing this tough thing and trying to figure out tough things and working through a lot of chaos with 5 kids. That was difficult. But I had tried to figure it out too long on my own and really not ask God to show me his way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I had an experience where I second guessed myself, but I was so confident that the son of mine that did the offense did it, that I wasn't backing down. But because I practically saw him do it. It was almost that obvious. But my hesitation came in, my doubt came in, because he was so adamant about not having done it. And he was crying and he's like, no, I didn't. I swear I didn't. But I think at that point, it was more of a battle of wills and him not wanting to then admit he had been lying, And so I just kept saying, I was like, no, I know you did it. I know you didn't. There's no way that this happened. Gravity would have been defied if he hadn't done it. So Megan, to answer your question, I think that it is kind of tricky, and maybe someday, in 30 years, we'll be like, hey mom, remember that time you told me I did this? I didn't. And I'll be like, all right, we'll put another hash, on my list of mistakes that I've made then.
But it's so easy to look back on it like that. But didn't you feel terrible in the moment? Because I feel terrible in the moment. Like, maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'm not. And it's such like you can't sleep at night because you just feel bad and you wake up thinking about it. I hate it.
But then I think about if he really was lying the whole time and I back down, then what am I teaching him? He's basically knows, all right, well, if I put on the theatrics and cry enough, then she'll believe me.
And then they'll take a chance again. And then
Yeah.
it just gets worse. And that's why you got to nip it in the bud, but it sure is hard.
Yeah. I think that really when kids lie, I mean, there's all these different reasons that they lie that I was going over and things like that. I think that especially what I learned from these 6 kinds of lies is that the motivations underneath really are what need to be addressed more than anything. One of the kinds of lies, guilt-driven lies, is when, say your child forges the signature on the progress report because he knows that if he has to show it to you, you're going to be disappointed in him, or, you're going to tell him that he's not studying hard enough. This guilt-driven lie is motivated by these thoughts of shame. And so if you see this pattern, then it's not about punishing the lie. When you see a pattern in the lying, it's about understanding why and where the lies are coming from and getting to know your child better.
I have a funny aside on forging signatures. So I must have grown out of my lying because there got to a point where, how, like, I don't know what grades it is, but you have to sign your kids' homework, permission slips, grades, whatever it is. And I got in trouble because my mom forgot to sign my papers like multiple instances. And so she finally got to the point where she said, learn my signature, and I would sign my own things for her. And she was okay with it.
It was permission because I trusted her.
Yeah.
They just had this silly rule at their school that everything had to be signed. And with 5 kids, I was signing. It was ridiculous. And I said, she always does her work. She was an independent student.
I forged my mom's signature on a permission slip to go to Adventure Island one time. And the teacher who I turned it into knew my mom well and contacted her. And in hindsight, I was probably, some elementary age, like 5th grade. I still have horrible penmanship. My mom's penmanship is like out of the book. Perfect. I'm like, it looked like a hot mess, I'm sure. Like I wasn't pulling the wool over at all.
Did you get to go? Adventure
I got to
Island?
go, but I also got in trouble for, I didn't know that there was no forging. I didn't know what that was. I was innocent,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to go on the field trip. What were you going to say, Susan?
But I think the omission kids, too, are trying to avoid overreactions in parents. So they just don't think it's that big of a deal, so they don't want to stir it up and their mom go crazy.
Yeah.
They failed to mention a detail that would have gotten them into trouble. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's like you not
would have
telling your mom.
changed their, I don't know.
Well, I think that is about integrity. You know, if your parent, if you're looking at your child and you say, did you do this? And they boldface lie, then that's a lie. If for them to confess something or to say that they did something when they could get away with it, kind of like BJ's story, the dog was there, that's a question of their integrity. And if they do confess and they do step forward and tell you the truth when they could get away with not telling it, I think that's a sign that your child has strong integrity. I think that's a good thing. But do you punish a lie of omission or lying by omission in the same way that you punish a flat lie?
With omission, you have to kind of investigate. Like I'm remembering now. I mean, I would.
It's all coming back.
It's all coming back to me now, as Celine Dion would say. Being Mom, Dad, can I go over to my boyfriend's house? Yeah, sure. But my boyfriend's parents
Are not
weren't
home. You left that part out.
I left that part out for sure, because the answer would have been no.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't have found out unless they did some investigative, research.
I think that one of the big takeaways is that when your child lies, if your child is old enough to understand this, you should talk to them about what lying does to the relationship, because that's really the problem with lying, is that it makes it where you cannot trust them anymore. And then going forward, when they want more responsibility, they want more opportunities to do things, you can't do that. And in a family, families are built on love and trust. And if you lie, then it erodes that. And so I think that it's not just about getting your way or not getting your way or not getting into trouble. It's about, we're a family and we tell the truth in this family.
I think also, even outside the family, one thing I tried to say a lot is, you may get away with things in this family. There might be things I never find out about, but it will catch up, because you're building a legacy of lies that then if you do something like that, the older you get, the consequences are greater, and they won't come from me. You're going to lose your job, or you're going to get in trouble with the police, or, it escalates. And I think that's a hard thing as a mom, is to remember sometimes it's so hard to deal with lies when you have multiple children, or you're busy, or you're tired. But it is something you cannot overlook, because it's like a snowball consequence thing, and it will get out of control. And then something, your adult child or your older child will get in some serious trouble that you'll then be so sad that you didn't take the time to address it when they were young.
Just like so many things with parenting, doing it when they're little and when the issues are small are a lot easier. Yeah.
Because gosh, that Megan, had I not nipped in the bud at 6 or 7, Lord knows where she would be.
She's giving you a death look.
Well, and I kind of had this come up the other day with James. His teacher told me that he hit someone at school, and I asked him, and he said, no, I didn't. And I said, your teacher literally just told me that you did, and she saw you do it. And so I feel like it's coming back around. I'm already going to have to watch that.
And if our listener audience heard any little squeaks, that was baby Beck, 7 weeks old.
Those are the best noises. I love them. You rewind 15 seconds and turn it up and you can hear a sweet little baby. All right. So what's the craziest lie your child has ever told? We want to hear it. You can tell us through a link in the show notes. We've got a lot of really good resources on lying. So make sure you look for the links to those down there as well. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to the iMom podcast. iMom is the motherhood program of the nonprofit organization Family First. Along with our fatherhood program, All Pro Dad, we exist to help you love your family well. Subscribe to our daily email, the iMom Minute, by going to imom.com/subscribe and get tons of great ideas, insight, and inspiration. The iMom podcast is hosted and produced by Abby Watts, along with Susan Merrill, Megan Tigner, and Chloe Blumenthal, edited by Isaiah Gunther.